Hi, welcome to my allotment update. Today I'm going to show you what progress I've made, what my plans are, and some thoughts about how I've designed my garden. My allotment leisure garden. There we go, for its full title. So the first thing I want to show you is I've managed to make a little barrier for the squirrels to stop eating. Well, I didn't really mind them eating a little bit of spinach because they weren't really doing much damage, but I put some broad beans in and they started digging them up, and they were digging the onions up, so I was having to keep replanting them. So I've just got all the old net out and put it around the bottom because I saw where it was coming in. It just kind of leaps right through the pigeon fence, the pigeon netting. So I thought this will just make it a bit less easy for it to do. The biggest change to my allotment so far, since I've updated you last, was a good friend of mine managed to raise this roof, so I can actually walk under there now, even though I got used to stooping, and I'm having to retrain myself that I can actually just walk in without ducking. We were both really pleased with the results. This is some old timber from a friend's plot that was clearing it, and I think it looks really lovely in here, lovely and weathered. When my friend cut it, the wood inside was absolutely gorgeous, beautiful, not rotted at all. And he also helped me put this reel up for my hose pipe, because that's a major issue for me. I'm quite far from the taps, so there's an awful lot of hose pipe I need to reel in and take out every time I need it. So hopefully that will really help. These are the paving slabs and all the rubbish I need to take off my plot. I think I found somewhere for the paving slabs, the broken paving slabs. It's always good to try and upcycle stuff if possible. So an idea, well, when I got my plot, there were a couple of basic things that were already here. The pond was here, where the polytunnel is now, and the brassica cage, fruit cage. There was a bed along there. There was a bed where my pergola is, and there were a couple of beds along here. So I've kind of kept to the basic outline that I got when I first got here, and kind of worked around things. Like there's quite a big dip in the soil, so I've tried to, along here, I did some dry stone walling, which was incredibly satisfying. Sorry, let me just show you around here. So to compensate for the big dip, as you can see there, it's quite a big drop in height. I did this dry stone walling along here. I managed to find lots of dry stone. Most of the dry stone walling was from what I've dug out of the soil, and I suspect along here that there used to be, because this used to be an old farm, I suspect this used to be a dry stone wall along here that was knocked down and filled in or something. So I've managed to do quite a lot of dry stone walling from that. There's plenty of videos on how to get started with dry stone walling. It's not a science, it's kind of more a meditation. You need to be incredibly patient, and there are a few rules that you really need to follow. So I suggest, if you want to do some dry stone walling, you look at some really good dry stone walling. Just get started in dry stone walling. If you have lots of this kind of stone at hand. Let's see what else I've been doing. I did do a little strim. I will try and strim less, but the reason I'm strimming occasionally is because I'm developing the lawn. There's lots of clover in there, and obviously loads and loads of weeds come up. So just to try and favour the lawn and the clover over the weed seeds, That's why I strim. Another thing about the way I've designed my garden is that it's easily accessible, because I would like to make this an accessible plot for some kind of social enterprise or gathering place or an outdoor meeting space. So I've tried to make it really super accessible for people. The one thing I don't have on here is anywhere for people to, you know, have a wee or something. So that's why I've not managed to get much further with that idea. But that is something I'm looking into, and there's quite a few different solutions for that. Because you can't really invite groups or people to come down if you haven't got anywhere for people to, you know, have a wee or whatever. So basically I've made it so that you can run around, you can walk around, you can wheel yourself around, and this bit here is somewhere really nice to just sit and enjoy the garden, because I think that's a big part of gardening, is actually enjoying what you're doing, and taking time to actually sit and watch everything changing and watch the insects and which little creatures come into your space. I'm trying to dig as less as possible, as least as possible, because I've got so many worms on here. So the soil, I've improved the soil an awful lot. Basically the way that the previous tenant created beds was to dig out all the topsoil, which is kind of insane, and it was all sort of heaped up, which I had to level and everything. So yeah, you can do a lot of damage to an allotment if you really sort of just bash at it without thinking about what you're doing. Because it is, I think of it as, well, it is a third space for community to gather and to build, but it's also an incredible haven for wildlife, and hopefully that will become sort of more prevalent with allotments. I know mine doesn't look like it's particularly wildlife friendly, but it really is. I've got an enormous amount of variety of plants growing, and I have a pond which is incredibly beneficial for wildlife. So you can see all the paths I've made for people to explore my plot easily. Around here, well, what I did this morning when I first got here was I took out all the stuff I want to do. That's kind of what I first do before I have a cup of tea and, relax into the day, and decide what really needs doing, what's time sensitive, what can wait, what needs urgent attention. You kind of do a little list, and you start at the top of the list. So usually what I do is I'll have a little list in my head, get out all the tools and things I need, and then go and have a cup of tea and sort of fine-tune it. So along here I've recut the border. I'm making all my borders wider if possible. So this one here, I'm not sure you can see because I've put loads of stuff on it, but it actually kind of tapers in to quite a narrow point before it widens back out again, and that's creating a little bit of an optical illusion to make my plot look a bit longer. I've also done the same with the hedges, where it starts off a little bit higher and then goes lower towards the end of the plot, to really enhance the borrowed view. This is called a borrowed view in garden design terms, of the woods, and that's also the main focal point of my shelter here. So when I sit in my shelter, which I mustn't forget I can actually walk into without stooping right down. So if I walk into here, and this is where I make my cup of tea and do all sorts of indoorsy bits in here, like to look at my plant books and sit if it's a bit windy, because it's mainly sheltered from the wind, because the wind comes from behind me. So this is a view that I have from my shelter, and I really wanted to enhance that. When I first got to my plot, the hedges were probably over 10 foot high. I had no idea that I had a view of the woods like that. And when the hedges came down, I was absolutely stunned, and that gave me a really much better idea of where to design a place to sit. So I think one of my big recommends for when you get a new plot is just sit in it, enjoy the space, see what's growing, and try and do as little big interventions as you possibly can when you first get it, unless it's just sort of clearing beds and, you know, tidying paths and stuff if it's already been made. But if you just get a blank allotment with sort of really not much on it, I'd suggest just actually getting to know it, taking down the hedges, tidying it up a bit, and then seeing what's growing, see what comes into your plot, and do some soil analysis if possible, see whether it's acidic or alkali, because that will give you an idea of what plants will enjoy being there. Notice where the sun comes in the morning, where it goes in the afternoon, which bits stay in shade. All those little things you can't really do by just visiting a plot once or twice and then just coming along with all your tools and just, you know, flailing away at everything. It really does, it saves a lot of time to take a bit of time in the beginning to actually plan stuff properly. That's what I've learnt I was trained to do 3D design, metalwork and jewellery. And anything in metalwork, you need to be absolutely 100% sure what you're doing. Especially when you're working with precious metals, you can't just bash away at stuff and hope it's going to come out all right, because it becomes very expensive, and it's incredibly hard on your body. So there's a lot of similarities between doing metalwork and doing gardening. You can't, you know, once you've destroyed something, you can't really go back. Obviously in metalwork you melt it down, but you know, that's not ideal because that really sets you back a lot. So yeah, there are lots of things that you can learn about caring for a plot. Well, firstly, you realise that it's not yours. Well, obviously it's the council, the Sheffield Council, an asset of Sheffield Council. And secondly, yeah, you're responsible for the wildlife that visits, and that has probably made it home for a really, really long time. So you need to appreciate allotment culture. I've noticed a lot of people always have earbuds in. So if anything happens on a plot nearby and anyone needs help, or, you know, if they're working on their own, you know, I don't know, it just feels incredibly antisocial, because you're not listening to the birds, you're not listening to what's happening around you. You're just connected, you're back in the human world. And really part of being on an allotment is to be in nature, you know, sort of, obviously it's really managed, but it's still nature. So that really upsets me. And also just saying hello to people and goodbye to people. I've noticed, you know, especially with groups of people, they just kind of ignore you, and you just think, well, what the hell, you know? What does it take just to acknowledge somebody's existence? What kind of world are we living in that people just want to be so intentionally isolated from other people? I just think there's something wrong about that. Yeah, so it's lovely to be here in the early morning. It's not that early, obviously, it's about 10 o'clock. But it's wonderful to hear the birds, to hear my allotment neighbours tapping away, see everything coming up. So I popped this rhododendron in here. I'm hoping it's going to do really well. The standard lavender was not living anymore, and I think that will be lovely there. That's an evergreen. So I really like having a mixture of evergreens and deciduous plants in my borders, and obviously plants that will attract lots of wildlife and insects and things. So this is where I've narrowed the path. I've narrowed it right down there, and then it comes out here. Whoops, try not to trip over everything. I'm really, really happy with this. This is dappled light here, which is perfect for more tender plants. In the afternoon this will get full sun, but I really love this light here. That peony is really coming on strong now. I'm not sure if you can see that back there. I can't really get there at the moment because I've got something in the way. The sweet peas are doing well. I've put a little bit more, these are mallow stalks from my mallow plants that I trim back. And I think they'll be a really good climbing frame for my sweet peas. I've split quite a lot of the foxgloves, so I've split them all along here because that clump was getting really congested. This medlar, and I think I've realised by looking up about it that it's neither a pear or an apple, it's just a medlar. And there's different ways to train it because it could potentially get quite big. You know, it'll be quite a while though. But a way to train it is to sort of have it more like a bally, cuppy thing at the top. So have more of a stem, a trunk, and then the branches start, rather than allowing it to bush out from the bottom. Apparently you can fan them as well, but you need to be against a wall for that, for support, so I don't really want to do that. Let's see, the meadow sweet's coming back strong here, that are split. So that's the meadow sweet, and I have lots of little seedlings which I think I've found a home for. Jacob's ladder's coming on strong, so I've got quite a few little patches of Jacob's ladder coming along here. Oh, this is quite exciting. I've found out, well, this is a little tree seedling here, and I've looked it up, and I think, look at those leaves, I think it's a silver birch, and they don't like being moved, so I'm going to leave it there. I know that's controversial, but there are reasons that I'd like to leave it there, if possible. Well, it is possible, it's my plot, so we'll leave it there. It's a really good symbol of hope and renewal. And I think I mentioned I've had a really difficult winter, so that's a really lovely symbol from, I don't know, it's just a nice thing. It kind of makes sense for me to leave it in there because of what's been happening. Let's see, I've been clearing the pond quite a bit. I got my marigolds out and grabbed all these the really old leaves from this marsh marigold, because there was loads and loads and loads of that green algae which kind of suffocates your ponds. So I've tried to do it in a really kind of meditative, slow way, and just a bit at a time, because and quite early in the morning when the newts are still hibernating or in their rocks or whatever they do. They tend to get more active later in the day. I think they are nocturnal, I'm not sure, but they definitely seem to get more active later in the day. So any pond work I've been trying to do earlier in the morning or earlier in the day, and just be really gentle and slow with whatever I'm doing, so that creatures have a chance to escape. So hopefully this will all be coming up beautifully soon. I think it is. I mean, this marsh marigold is gorgeous. I think once it's flowered I'm going to take it out. Oh, there's a newt there. I'm going to take it out and split it because it's getting too big for my pond, and I have a few friends with ponds who'd quite like a bit. I just saw a newt, so I'm afraid I was a little bit too late for you there. So I think that's most of the stuff I've been doing. I've got all my jobs out for today, and I'll update you in a couple of weeks about how I got on. So thanks very much for watching. Ta-ra!